After 3 years of marriage, I suddenly had a revelation and asked Julian for a divorce. Another reason was that familiar lily-scented perfume. Julian stopped flipping through the contract, his head bowed, preventing me from seeing his expression. In the past, seeing him like this might have moved me, and I would have played the role of a devoted wife. That lily-scented perfume revealed a truth: Julian, who had always kept everyone at arm's length, would actually allow someone else to get close to him. Back then, I married him because I truly loved him. Now, I'm leaving him because I don't. I should have let go a long time ago. Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and tell us where you're listening from in the comments. Julian asked, bewildered, why divorce? Aren't we doing perfectly fine? I let out a light laugh. I couldn't believe Julian still had the audacity to play dumb. He wanted to pretend, but I wasn't willing to go along with it. I quickly walked to the bedroom, grabbed a suit, and came back to him, tossing it into his arms. I opened my mouth and said, the photos, the perfume, the lipstick, are you seriously telling me this isn't a provocation? Julian, we're both adults, there's no point in playing innocent anymore. Julian clutched the suit, which still carried the pleasant scent of lilies. The air grew heavy, and we stared at each other. Julian seemed to say helplessly, Grace, it's not what you think. We're just colleagues, and maybe, while discussing something, I accidentally picked up the scent. It was truly beyond my expectation. Even with things developing this far, Julian still treated me like an ignorant child. Did he really think I was that easy to fool? I admit I truly liked Julian, but that was based on him not cheating. Julian, don't treat me like an idiot. She's practically put a mark on you. Do you expect me to catch you both in the act? I haven't stooped that low. Grace. Julian seemed so enraged by me that he couldn't speak. I didn't care about his anger. I placed the agreement on his table. As a respectable heiress, I had only suffered the pains of love, and I certainly had the means to pay for my own decisions. Ignoring stunned gaze, I continued, I will pay for this boring relationship of mine. If you have any integrity, sign this agreement. Turning back, I couldn't resist stinging Julian with one last remark. Honestly, when we got married, I didn't force you into it. If you had the courage to resist, I might have respected you as a man. But you and your so-called the one that got away act? You actually dared to play that out right in front of me. With that, I put on the sunglasses I'd already prepared and, pulling the suitcase I'd packed, walked out. In his home office, Julian watched Grace's receding figure but didn't follow. He intended for Grace to reflect on her own actions. He didn't take Grace's divorce papers seriously, believing it was just Grace throwing a tantrum. Looking back at the place I had lived for 3 years, a touch of sadness was inevitable. It was true that Julian and I had an arranged business marriage, but I genuinely liked him. I had foolishly believed 3 years of companionship would move him, only to realize it had all been my own solo act. Still, I would take whatever compensation I was due. At the very least, it would make up for my emotional damages. My feelings for Julian were real, but I hadn't reached the point of losing myself completely. I drove my car along the road, tears streaming down my face. The sting of being betrayed by someone I loved was truly painful. My chest felt as if it were being crushed by a heavy weight, making it difficult to breathe. I took a deep breath and slowly drove the car into the Vance family's garage. After stopping the car, the pent-up emotions finally burst forth. I leaned against the steering wheel, sobbing uncontrollably. Actually, when I saw the photos, Julian had a subtly doting smile I had never seen before. In that moment, anger, disgust, and other emotions surged through me, and I rushed to the bathroom to dry heave. Afterwards, my intuition proved correct. The woman getting close to Julian was Scarlett, his childhood, the one that got away. I gave a self-deprecating laugh, never imagining such a plot twist would happen to me. Wiping my tears with a tissue, I carried my handbag and walked through the front door. Seeing my familiar home, I finally found some warmth. As I walked in, my father happened to be home. When he saw me return, a flicker of surprise crossed his eyes. You're back. Yes, and I'm not going back. I plan to get a divorce, and also, I want to minimize our family's cooperation with the Hayes family. Did that jerk cheat on you? Yes, she even sent the evidence to my cell phone. Mr. Vance held it in for a long time, then suddenly burst out, roaring, I knew that kid wasn't any good. He's just an irresponsible loser. He acts as if I forced him to marry you. If he's so wronged, why doesn't he go play the martyr? And you, too. I told you to think carefully back then, but you insisted on being swayed by his looks. Mrs. Vance heard the commotion and came out, only to see her furious husband and crying daughter. Once she understood the whole story, Mrs. Vance couldn't help but curse. He looks like a decent man on the outside, but I never expected him to pull the same stunts as those other men. Honey, your mom and I support you. Back then, we thought you were out of your mind for choosing that troublesome man, and we urged you to be serious. I hung my head in shame, unable to meet my parents' gaze. I truly was out of my mind back then, falling for Julian simply because of his looks. Looking back now, it was nothing short of an embarrassing past in my life. Mrs. Vance looked at her daughter, embracing her tenderly. Don't worry, the Hayes family won't get away with this. Look at how my good daughter has been treated by them. I can't help but interject. I want a larger share of his assets as compensation for my emotional distress. My parents exchanged a look, finally relieved that their daughter wasn't getting bogged down in endless brooding. I lay idly at home, no longer needing to spend all day figuring out how to please a man. My best friend, Chloe, had arranged to meet me at a store. When she saw me, she waved happily. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, she sheepishly lowered her hand. Seeing her cautious demeanor, a trace of warmth bloomed in my heart. I took Chloe's hand. I haven't been that sad for a while now. Don't treat me like a fragile porcelain doll. It was as if a floodgate had opened for Chloe. She couldn't wait to unleash all the complaints she'd been holding back. Honestly, I don't know what Julian has to be so arrogant about. There are so many people far more capable than him. They're all much more humble than him. You have no idea how infuriating his aloof demeanor is. If it weren't for your two families' arranged business marriage, with that idiotic attitude, he'd offend everyone sooner or later. Having said that, Chloe mimicked Julian, putting on an aloof expression as if keeping everyone at arm's length. After her little performance, she shuddered. He'd maintain that stiff demeanor even in formal settings, but then the one that got away would show up, and he'd flash a smile. His business partners probably felt insulted. Just watch, the moment you two divorce, those partners will immediately turn their backs on him. Don't underestimate his knack for making enemies. Chloe watched my expression as she spoke. Seeing that I had no reaction, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. All right, enough about that scumbag. Let's go shopping. Today, it's on me. I smiled, playing along. Thank you, Ms. Chloe, for your generosity. The moment we entered the store, a sales associate eagerly greeted us. Welcome, ladies. You've come at just the right time. We've just received our latest collection of handbags, clothes, and jewelry. I'll bring them right over for you to see. The sales associate maintained her professional smile, but inside, she was squealing like a gopher. This huge opportunity had finally fallen into her lap, and she was determined to use all her skills to serve these two big spenders. While the sales associate went to retrieve the items, Chloe and I chatted about other things. Isn't that Mrs. Hayes? Julian didn't come with you? I turned around, and it was Julian, so-called the one that got away. Seeing me turn, she assumed I was provoked and, with a challenging smile, continued, speaking of which, Julian is so sweet to me. If it weren't for his help, I really wouldn't have been able to get my divorce. Today, I was just thinking of buying him an outfit. Mrs. Hayes wouldn't mind, would she? We're just good friends. Scarlett finished speaking, still looking at me with a provocative smile, as if hoping to see me erupt in anger. Unfortunately, I didn't give her the satisfaction. I also stopped Chloe, who was about to charge to my defense. I slowly began, calling him Julian like that. Anyone would think you're his mother. He's not even your first husband, so Miss Scarlett, do you think you'll be his second? It seems you placed yourself in the position of a mistress. After I said that, the smug look on Scarlett's face completely froze. I even made a point of adding, however, Miss Scarlett, I still have to thank you for providing me with such evidence. And regarding our recent conversation, Miss Scarlett, you might want to think about how you're going to face Mrs. Hayes. Ignoring the sales associate's astonished gaze as she held the clothes, I simply told her to wrap up all the clothes. Then, without bothering with Scarlett, who looked like a statue, I turned and left. Chloe, still excited, exclaimed, Grace, you were absolutely brilliant just now. You should have seen Scarlett, the manipulative one's face. It was practically green. She's always dreamed of marrying into the Hayes family, but Julian is just not very sharp. His parents, however, are shrewd. How could they not see through Scarlett's intentions? What are you looking at? Get lost. Scarlett glared fiercely at the people around her, then turned and stomped away. I don't know what a mistress has to be so arrogant about. In the end, she couldn't outsmart the heiress. You're right. Good thing she left, otherwise I really would have thrown up. I saw the incoming phone call and curled my lips into a sarcastic smile. Chloe glanced at it and scoffed, he's more obedient than a dog. The moment I answered the phone call, Julian's reprimanding voice rang out. Grace, didn't I tell you? Scarlett is just my friend. Why are you making things difficult for her? She's already pitiful enough, and I was just helping her as a friend. I cut off Julian's tedious accusations and coldly stated, you believe everything Scarlett says? I truly didn't realize you were more obedient than a dog. And what does her pitiful situation have to do with you? She has parents, she doesn't need you to meddle. I'm divorcing you. My lawyer will send over the divorce papers, please sign them. I finished speaking, suppressing my anger, then immediately blocked and deleted him in one swift move. Julian stared in shock at the disconnected phone call. When he tried to call back, he found he'd been blocked. However, he didn't pay much attention to the word divorce. Grace was always willful, he figured he'd let her cool down for a while, and he would go get her once he'd sorted things out with Scarlett. However, things didn't go as he wished. A video went viral and became a trending topic. Hashtag Julian Hayes divorce shock, hashtag ex versus wife showdown, hashtag wife's dilemma. The public's fascination with scandals was fully activated, and everyone was busy browsing online. Soon, the comments section was completely flooded with comments. So this is the first love trope from a novel going head-to-head with the legal wife. The previous comment, the one that got away, is a bit pathetic. She's practically a damn manipulative old hag. Previous commenter is a bit mean, I like it. I heard that this so-called Mr. Julian probably had no real capabilities before, which is why he married an heiress. Got it. It's the classic novel trope, chase first, then love later. Introduce the one that got away early on, then the protagonist sees her true colors, and goes back to live happily ever after with the female lead. The previous comment, damn, that actually sounds plausible. I'll keep watching. This is going to be my daily dose of drama for a while. Soon, the resourceful online community dug up the full story, and everyone started flocking to the official website, leaving passive-aggressive comments. Even more people, like dogs catching the scent of a bone, rushed in to stir up trouble. The family mansion. Mr. Hayes saw the trending topic online, and fury flared. Remembering the call the Vance family had made earlier, he immediately smashed his cell phone. Was he born a fool? He can't even handle his private affairs. Now group shares are plummeting, and the Vance is cutting ties with him. Mr. Hayes turned to Mrs. Hayes, who was sitting on the sofa, and said coldly, go tell him that I don't have just one son. If he's incompetent, he can get out of Hayes. Hearing this, Mrs. Hayes also became agitated. Her arranged business marriage with Mr. Hayes was precisely because the succession rights had to go to her children alone. Mrs. Hayes thought for a moment, then pursed her lips and slowly said, if he can't handle this, then bring Eleanor back. She's got heirs now anyway. Seeing Hayes' silent reaction, Mrs. Hayes sneered. You're not still counting on those illegitimate children of yours, are you? They're all useless. If you rely on them, the Hayes family won't be far from bankruptcy. The dignified smile on Mrs. Hayes' face was quickly crumbling. She simply had no patience left to slowly teach this good-for-nothing son. She had spent more than enough time on him. He truly was a lost cause, Mrs. Hayes muttered inwardly. Mr. Hayes remained silent for a moment, chain-smoking. After a while, he slowly said, since that's the case, let's bring Eleanor back now. Have her familiarize herself with the Hayes' affairs. Once this matter settles down, she can take Julian's place. Mr. Hayes had also come to terms with it. There were female heirs now, and it was better to hand the business over to a capable person than to a good-for-nothing. Mrs. Hayes got the answer she wanted and put on a polite smile. The conversation between the two of them had sealed Julian's fate. Julian, unaware that he had already been abandoned, was still in the conference room trying to placate the shareholders. After all, their interests were what had suffered the most this time. He lacked his usual high spirits, forced to lower his proud head to appease the shareholders. But how could these shareholders, seeing their profits diminished, be appeased with just a few words? Someone immediately launched in an attack. Mr. Julian, our losses this time are due to your personal affairs. Could you please provide us with an explanation? A shareholder seated in the middle looked at Julian with an unfriendly expression, seemingly waiting for his explanation. This is a minor misunderstanding. My wife and I will release a statement, and this scandal will die down. Besides, you're all aware of how the media operates, aren't you? After his speech, the shareholders' expression softened slightly. As long as their interests weren't harmed, they were fine. That probably won't happen as my brother wishes. The group just released a statement. Julian subconsciously turned his head, only to see that the newcomer was Eleanor, his own sister. He instinctively began to feel uneasy, as if something was slowly slipping out of his control, finally recognizing the cruel truth. His voice was hoarse, with an almost imperceptible plea in his tone. "What did you mean by what you just said?" Eleanor watched her brother with grim satisfaction. Just because he was a man, she had to obediently settle down and bring benefits to this good-for-nothing. But she had endured. As long as she took over Hayes, her business empire would expand. Of course, it's exactly what you're thinking. You don't honestly believe the Vance family would just swallow this bitter pill and the humiliation? And that statement is a divorce statement. Eleanor's gaze sharpened as she looked at the assembled shareholders, stating each word clearly. "I think everyone here is well aware of the consequences." Just moments ago, the shareholders had been enjoying the Hayes siblings' exchange like a spectacle, but as soon as the fire reached them, they couldn't remain calm. "Mr. Julian, what is going on? Is the Vance family really planning to divorce you? Are you kidding? If the Vance family pulls out, and our collaborations stop, won't our losses be even greater?" Some people no longer cared about Julian's reputation and openly ridiculed him. "What kind of nonsense is this? It's clearly adultery, and yet you claim to be friends? Friends who don't sleep together?" The conference room instantly became loud and chaotic, but Julian seemed to hear nothing. Only the two words, divorce, echoed in his mind. He abruptly stood up, abandoning everyone, and rushed out. Instantly, the conference room fell dead silent, everyone staring in stunned disbelief as Julian left. Even full siblings in an elite family would turn on each other for profit. No one naturally preferred to be subordinate. Eleanor watched her brother's retreating figure, a flash of triumph in her eyes. Even the seasoned shareholders, who had seen it all, were utterly bewildered. No, he couldn't possibly think his own sister was genuinely there to warn him. Could he? As you all can see, how can a CEO who can't even manage his personal affairs lead Hayes forward? He's probably got a line of people waiting to retaliate against him. The shareholders exchanged silent glances. One of them replied, "Ms. Eleanor, we don't mind, but what about the chairman?" Seeing that the bait had been taken, Eleanor began to savor her victory, addressing the questioning shareholder word by word. "Naturally, the most capable should lead. And my brother seems to have deserted his post. Can someone so selfish truly be capable of holding this position? Of course, the chairman will also agree that the most capable should lead. I will cover any losses incurred after the Vance withdraws, and none of your interests will suffer." Hearing this, the shareholders' expressions softened, and they were naturally eager to offer some praise. "Indeed, like father, like daughter. Ms. Eleanor, so young, will surely take Hayes to new heights." "That's right. These children are truly outstanding, each more capable than the last." Eleanor dealt with the shareholders with a smile. They were even more satisfied, finding her far better than the previous arrogant one. After finishing with the shareholders, Eleanor walked out of the conference room. Her assistant, who was waiting by the door, stepped forward and voiced his concerns. "Ms. Eleanor, what if Mr. Julian and Ms. Grace reconcile? Our current situation might become unfavorable." Eleanor scoffed coldly. "The fact that I could take over Hayes so quickly means Ms. Grace played a part in it. If she hadn't informed me beforehand, I might not have been able to win against Julian. Also, release a statement from Hayes announcing Julian's dismissal. And let's give Ms. Grace another push." The assistant marveled to himself. When a woman gets ruthless, men don't stand a chance. Ms. Eleanor is clearly determined to crush her brother completely, leaving him no hope of recovery. The next day, I saw Julian at my doorstep. He must have been sitting there all night. When he saw me, he excitedly tried to stand, but, due to his legs being numb, he fell directly to the ground. Julian looked at me with pleading eyes, as if waiting for me to help him up. I rolled my eyes at him. What kind of creature is this, still playing the victim in front of me? I simply walked past him. Seeing me approach, his eyes immediately lit up. But his hope quickly turned to disappointment. I walked straight past him, just as I would kick away any stumbling blocks on my path to a brighter future. Behind me, Julian's weak voice called my name. "Grace." But I didn't turn back, saying coldly, "I don't want to come home and find you still blocking my doorstep. I'll have the Hayes family come pick you up." With that, I didn't say another word to Julian and simply left. When the Hayes family received the call, they were probably so disgusted by Julian's public display that they simply sent someone to bring him back. Julian returned home in a daze. He didn't want to divorce Grace, he truly cared for her. The moment he stepped through the door, a slap landed squarely on his face. Julian had no time to dodge it and was hit hard. "You good for nothing. Who told you to desert your post?" You incompetent fool who can't even handle his own private affairs, don't bother showing your face at Hayes anymore. From now on, you can hang out with any woman you want, your mother and I won't clean up your messy affairs anymore. Julian felt as if he'd fallen into an ice cave. Seeing a flicker of triumph in his sister's eyes, he understood everything. He asked in a hoarse voice, "So, you're giving up on me this time?" Mr. Hayes sneered, "I'm not stopping you and you're the one that got away from living happily ever after, am I? You should be happy, no one will stand in your way now. In the shareholders' meeting, your sister already announced your dismissal. Your mother and I have agreed. From now on, you can live your life however you please." Julian helplessly turned his gaze towards his mother, but Mrs. Hayes had long grown tired of cleaning up the mess for this useless son. "By the way, you'll divorce Ms. Grace in a month. If you don't go, I'll have someone drag you there." Mr. Hayes ignored Julian's furious glare and added insult to injury. "Honestly, if you weren't my son, I would have kicked you out a long time ago. I wouldn't have given you so many chances." With that, Mr. Hayes huffed, hands behind his back, and walked away. Julian stood rooted to the spot, tears of regret streaming down his face. A month later, Julian still came with me to get our divorce certificate. Stepping out of City Hall, Julian looked as if all his strength had been drained, collapsing onto the ground. He looked fragile and utterly helpless. "Grace, don't abandon me. I'll be good from now on." He pleaded with me, crying, but his crying was far from dignified, stripping him of his usual composure. Of course, this scene was captured by reporters, forming a stark contrast with me, smiling brightly in the sunlight. I looked at the divorce certificate in my hand, it felt like a release from my shackles. My whole being lightened, and I strode forward purposefully. Julian suddenly spoke. "Grace, will we ever see each other again?" I looked directly into his bloodshot eyes. "No. There's no point in me remembering someone like you. It's too disgusting." With that, I walked quickly away, no longer paying attention to Julian's cries of regret behind me. In the year that followed, I poured all my energy into my career and achieved significant success. In this circle, I occasionally heard about Julian and Scarlett. Because was drinking heavily every day, Scarlett saw an opportunity and successfully got pregnant using some less than honorable methods. She thought that for the sake of the child, the Hayes family would allow Julian to return to Hayes. However, the Hayes family simply ignored it, acting as if they hadn't seen anything, and Scarlett was left without official status, simply following Julian. This incident spread through their social circles, becoming yet another cautionary tale for parents to use when lecturing their children. I simply smiled, treating the whole affair as just another common joke. Epilogue: Julian and Grace divorced. He drank heavily every day, trapping himself in memories of better times. In truth, his marriage to Grace had begun as an arranged business marriage. At the time, the one that got away had gone abroad, leaving him distraught, and he hadn't noticed the affection in Grace's eyes. But during their time together, his heart gradually fell for her, and he began to truly care for Grace. When returned, he couldn't deny that it stirred something within him. After all, she was his childhood, the one that got away, he couldn't simply ignore her. Perhaps saw this and gradually tested his boundaries. He admitted he enjoyed the flirtation with Scarlett, but the person he loved was Grace. He held on to a sliver of hope. He gradually convinced himself that everyone in their circle behaved this way, and he hadn't done anything too excessive. Seeing the one that got away humble herself to please him gave him a strange sense of satisfaction. So, when Grace proposed divorce, he was momentarily flustered, yet he still thought Grace was just throwing a tantrum. Shamelessly, he questioned Grace under the guise of friendship, hoping to conceal his own ignoble feelings. In the end, things escalated beyond control, and Grace resolutely asked him for a divorce. In that moment, he was terrified. He knelt and begged her not to leave him, promising to be a good husband if only she wouldn't divorce him. Unfortunately, she ignored him and even directly informed their parents about the divorce, who then forcefully ordered him to divorce. Only then did he truly understand that he had lost her, and lost his beloved. Afterwards, he could only watch her spirit-eyed demeanor on TV, haunted by her words, never seeing each other again. He could only watch her happiness from afar, like a rat in a gutter. He closed his eyes, tears streaming from the corners, wishing all the beautiful moments could have stopped right then. Thank you for listening to today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments section. Feel free to share your views, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.